So September is usually not the best month for crypto. All right. I know we've already had 6 months of doing nothing for crypto, and we're like, when the hell is the market going to move up? Well, today we're going to talk about why I still believe Q4 is going to be the time where crypto moves up, and why September could still be boring. Last video, right, 5 days ago, I uploaded a video that was called Surprise Altcoin Blowoff Top Coming. Now, I still believe that's coming in Q4, and in that video, we talked about how Total 3, which is the altcoin market, if we got rejected from this trend line again, we might have to come down and make a higher low. And I think that's what we're doing right now. And it exactly matches seasonality. And it's honestly crazy how this stuff plays out usually. Okay, so if you guys like today's video, make sure you guys like and subscribe. But let's jump on in. So what we have right now is, and what we've been talking about in live streams and the videos, is how August and September are usually boring months for crypto. If we actually look at, September throughout history, you guys can see that the best month that Bitcoin has ever had in September in its history is plus 6% since 2013. So if we're just going based off the odds that Bitcoin breaks all-time highs in September are very, very low, right? This is just based off the facts. This is not based off our tiny, whiny feelings, right? But in Q4 of election years, you guys can see that October, November, December are very, very good, right? 2020 plus 27%, November plus 43%, December plus 47%. 2016, October plus 15%, November plus 6%, December plus 31%, right? So we know that Q4 of election years are really, really good. And we know that September's, not even just in election years, but just in general, are typically not the best. Doesn't mean we have to dump down to 40K, but it typically means that it's unlikely that we see the breakout in September, just based off historical precedents, okay? But where does this bring us to? And where does this bring us to the wave 5 and the altcoin blow off top we've been talking about? Well, I think that's going to come in Q4, okay? And I think it's going to play out something like this. So if we just look at the Bitcoin chart, I showed this in a live stream yesterday. I think we're going to get a squeeze back up to the top of the range. And then in September, we're going to see that typical weakness in the market. And that's going to be sort of, in my opinion, the last sort of time capitulation of the market, okay? The last time capitulation of the market, the time where you start to get those last low volume sellers coming into the market, and they get out and they give up, okay? And that's typically what happens in September. And we looked at this last video when we took a look at what kind of happened in September of, sort of previous cycles, okay? In the halving year or the election year, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. You can fancy your boat. But in September, you could see right here, August, we kind of came down. First week of September, we hit a low. And you guys can see in September, we didn't do much, right? It's not that we went down, but you can see September 1st, which was right here actually. And then we ended the month right here, right? So we went from about, 11.8 thousand to about 11,000. Not the biggest drop, but not much happened in September. What you'll notice is starting in October, actually right on October 1st, we hit this little local low. And then October, we started to move up. Right? And you'll find the same thing over here back in 2016, right? If we go back all the way, we zoom all the way back to 2016, right? And we go to September of 2016. If I could find it, man, it's all the way back here. Shit. You can see that August sucked, right? This August has been boring. It hasn't been horrible. It's actually been okay, considering. But you see, August was boring. And then we entered September right about here, right? And you can see in September, we actually went from 570 to about 611, right? So we actually saw in September here, we saw about an 8% move up for Bitcoin, right? So actually that was a pretty good September, but we didn't break out, right? You can notice that in September, we didn't break out of the highs. It was in this time in November, and then 2020 was in October. Right, so Q4 is the time where we saw Bitcoin break through its local highs and then enter its parabolic phase, Q4 of the election year. And that's what I think is going to play out right now. And it's going to be the same thing for the altcoins. I think for the altcoins, what we're going to see is this higher low be formed and build the structure just like we had back in the previous cycle. Right here, we can see that right now we're just consolidating above the previous bear market consolidation pattern, right? Very simple. Bear market consolidation. We are building structure right on top of that. And I think that's exactly what we did back in 2020, right? We had this bear market structure, right? We broke out and then we built this long multi-month structure. This was like a 4-month structure right above that bear market highs before breaking out, right? And you can see it was actually in the first week of September where we actually hit a bottom. September was boring for altcoins. And then October, we started to pick up. And then it was off to the races. And that's the thing we're going to see right now, right? I think we're going to form some type of higher low in September. All right. And then going into October and November, that's when I think we see the altcoins start to perform well after we get some of this fear and jibberies out of the market for this potential rate cut, right? Because half the people think the rate cut's going to be bullish. Half the people think the rate cut's going to be bearish. Historically, you can make a case for either one. Depends on what happens to the economy. This is not a macro channel, by the way. This is not a macro channel. I was not going to talk about that too much, but depends on what happens to the economy after the rate cut. But we have to get those fear and jimbers out of the way. And then when you put that into a fact where you're going to have a lot of investors looking at this and saying, hey, September is usually boring. September usually red. Let me not take too much risk in September. Let me come back in October, where historically October is the best month for Bitcoin, right? Its median price is 27.7%. Its average price is plus 23%. Let me come back in October, or let me start building a position in late September and ride the Q4 wave. I think that's what we're going to see right now, guys. And there's many signs of that, right? Bitcoin dominance still chilling at this trend line. Despite Bitcoin chopping around the last few weeks, we haven't seen Bitcoin dominance spike up. I think we still could see one more spike up on Bitcoin dominance, but I'm hoping this is the high on Bitcoin dominance. And if you actually go look at ETH Bitcoin, for the first time in this downtrend, ETH Bitcoin has gotten cratered, but we've come back down to test these previous highs. And for the first time, we actually have some long time frame bullish divergence, right? We have lower lows on ETH BTC, right? And we have higher lows on the RSI. So for the first time, we actually have built some weekly bullish divergence on Ethereum Bitcoin, which has gotten absolutely cratered back into, right, major support. Now, this could still dribble down into September, right? So ETH can still bleed into Bitcoin in September, but starting in October, that's when I'm expecting this to start moving, okay? So ETH BTC building some weekly bullish divergence, Bitcoin dominance at, between 58 and 60% is the big resistance, pretty close to that point. I think we're setting up for a good Q4, guys. And this goes back into my last video where we talked about surprise altcoin blow-off top coming. I think by the time we get to that point, market participants are going to be so stressed out. They're going to be so tired of hearing about the bounce to the highs, bounce to the lows. They're just going to say, screw this market. I'm getting out of this market. It's not worth being in this market. And I think that's when we're going to see the move up. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think people are starting to give up hope a little bit, but I don't think we're quite there yet. Give us one September of everyone being bullish for the rate hikes, seeing maybe a little bit of a sell-off or downside into that. And I think you're going to see people start to really, really give up in this market. And that's when we finally get the move up, which if we just follow the data, we wouldn't be surprised that maybe September is boring and October, November, December are good. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? So that's what I think we're setting up for, guys. That's what I think we're setting up for. And it all goes into Bitcoin cycles where we historically were exactly where we should be, despite all the hoopla joopla and the 6 months of bearishness, right? Especially for the altcoin market, but the 6 month of sideways for Bitcoin, you can see exactly where we were in 2017 based on the cycles. If you match up all the cycles from the lows, you'll see exactly where we should be. You'll see that September is typically not the time. This is not typically the time where we break out, but once we hit that October point, you can see that's when both cycles, we started to break higher, okay, into that early October point. And then into December is when we typically hit some type of major peak, which I'm expecting could be the cycle peak this time, or it's some type of local peak where we get some type of like 30-40% pullback on Bitcoin. Altcoins get crushed again. But ultimately, I think Q4 is going to be the time where we have some fun in this market. But we have to get through September. We have to get through September. You just got to get through it, man. Right? So my thing is, don't feel like you have to be all in this market. If you're stressed out, it's probably because you're all in. keep some cash on the sidelines. Okay, don't go all in. If you got cash and you got dry powder, spread it out. Spread it out, man. Spread it out. I don't think there's a rush. I think you still got a few weeks, up to maybe even a month, month and a half, to be able to scoop stuff up, especially if they continue to bleed lower. Okay. Don't feel like you have to be all in this market. It's not, I don't think there's any type of urgency today where you got to get in. Okay. So, if you're a bear, I think there's going to be some good opportunities here in September to play some of these moves. But for me personally, what I'm looking at is if we do see a move up back up to 68, 69,000 up to this local high on BTC, I am looking to probably take a little profit. And then if we get a move back down, looking to slowly get back into some stuff. Back in the back end of September or early October, depending on where we're at. All right. So that's the update video today, guys. Right. So nothing really changed from 5 days ago. Right. We're looking for altcoins to make some type of higher low in September on a pullback. And then the surprise altcoin rally that I think is going to come in Q4 is going to shock a lot of people. But we have to get through September. And, as Green Day says, wake me up when September ends. But remember, when you see signs, Bitcoin dominance, ETH BTC, Bitcoin historical returns, right? Be ready to strike when the time is right. But wake me up when September ends. All right. So I'm out of here, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Subscribe to the channel. I might be live tonight. I might not be live tonight. Depends on it's a holiday weekend. I'm not necessarily doing anything, but I also don't expect like major price movements probably until after Labor Day. So probably September 3rd is when we start seeing some price movements again. So I may or may not take the weekend off, right? Unless we get some crazy price action. It's a lot of the same stuff. So I'll either see you guys tonight or I'll see you guys after the weekend. All right. So take care. Much love. See you guys.